All right. Here we go, back again on the other side of the coin. All right, we are back again on the other side of the coin, ladies and gentlemen. As I promised to you guys yesterday on my stream, that we will be dropping a brand new video today with Jack Benson. Some of you guys might know him from last season when Chelsea played Atletico Madrid in the Champions League. But as you know, it's very topical at the moment. Saul's made his transition to Chelsea. So I could not think of another better person to talk about this whole situation than Jack himself. And, Jack's a massive Atletico Madrid fan. He's actually moving to Spain, not in Madrid, but somewhere in Spain. So I'm pretty sure he'll be much closer to the whole situation. Jack, my man, how you doing?
I'm good. Still recovering from the absolute craziness that was last night. Just following everything unwind, sort of right throughout the day. It was borderline unbelievable, and actually sort of early evening, I actually I bashed my head. I sort of smashed my head, just completely accidental. Wow. So I woke up with a very sore head this morning, and actually for the first sort of few minutes, I was wondering whether it was just all a crazy dream, because it was just mental.
Yeah, man, the way things took place in the transfer deadline, and not just the deadline, I feel like this whole transfer window, this summer transfer window, was mad. I mean, we'll get into the whole Saul situation, but I just want to quickly ask you, what did the whole Messi to PSG, first of all, mean to La Liga? Like the people that follow La Liga a lot, like yourself. I mean, what did that news create initially before we get into the whole Saul and Griezmann stuff?
It's quite tricky because obviously, as an Atleti fan, Messi not being in Barcelona anymore massively raises our prospects of retaining the league title. So from a selfish point of view, obviously it's great that he's gone, but in terms of the wider league as a whole and sort of Spanish football in general, obviously, it can't be understated just how big of a loss it is, because he has been the face of Spanish football, albeit with Ronaldo, but obviously Ronaldo then left and he stayed for over a decade. So to lose that, and I think to lose him in the sort of comical fashion that it was, it would be a bit different if, like last summer, for example, when obviously Manchester City were very much rumoured to be interested in him, and there was talk of potentially €100 million offer, plus potentially even some players involved as well. That I feel like would have been a little bit different compared to letting him leave for free to a club like PSG, who have already humiliated Barcelona so many times in previous transfer windows. Neymar, Verratti, and then PSG effectively humiliated Madrid as well this transfer window by turning down crazy amounts of money for Mbappe. So I think that the way that it happened, and the way that PSG sort of went about things, and the whole issue with Barcelona being so far over the sort of the salary cap, even without Messi on the books, it's just not really a very good look for a league that's supposed to sort of be the second biggest behind the Premier League, if that sort of makes sense. It was very sort of amateur, and like I said, it's just sort of comical the way that it all sort of happened.
Yeah, man, the way they got bullied out of that whole situation, the way, I suppose, La Liga losing some of these superstars. I mean, it is very difficult. I think next season might be a bit different, with Real Madrid really looking to eye in Kylian Mbappe, maybe even a Haaland. We'll see what happens. What Barcelona does, I think Barcelona is in massive trouble for at least a few more seasons until they start balancing their books out a little bit. And then maybe after that they can do something. But let's now really talk about the whole situation of Saul, Griezmann, Atletico Madrid. Firstly, congratulations to you guys, Atletico Madrid, for winning the La Liga last season. I think fantastic achievement. And the way it kind of happened, I remember when we had you in the first leg, you were confident that Atletico should be winning the league, but you're getting a bit weary that some tense sort of results were coming along. I mean, firstly, let's talk about that. Atletico winning the La Liga. I believe last time they won was 2014. That must have been it.
Correct.
Yeah. I mean, what does it mean to the fans? This one was definitely special. Obviously, with Barcelona, still Messi was there. Real Madrid was strong as well, and to come off stronger than both of those, that's a huge achievement, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. And it was absolutely massive to the club because they've been through effectively 2 rebuilds since that title-winning team from 2014. So to then actually go on and win the league again with a completely different core of players really sort of emphasizes the good work that Simeone and sort of the club as a whole have done in the last sort of 8 or so years since winning the league title, to sort of really establish the club as sort of not quite elite. You know, there's still very much clearly a gap between your Bayerns, your Barcelonas, Real Madrids, Manchester Uniteds, but that sort of level below, Atleti are sort of very much established there now. So it was huge for that reason and sort of cementing that. But at the same time, it was quite strange because it was a league title won without fans. So the start of the season, you've had 40% of fans back in stadiums. So you've now had fans seeing, for example, Luis Suarez for the first time in the flesh as an Atletico Madrid player. And he's the reason that they were champions last year. So it's quite a strange feeling because it was so disconnected up until that final game of the season at Valladolid, which is just outside of Madrid. It's not too far of a journey. And a lot of fans made the journey.
Hey, Jack.
Sorry, man.
Yeah. We lost you there in the middle.
Yeah, I think I had some connection issues there. My apologies for that.
That's all right, man. Go
on. I sort of lost my train of thought now.
With Luis Suarez being back and fans seeing him for the first time.
Yeah, and sort of him being the reason that the title was won last season. It's very strange, and that disconnect was very much there. Apart from the final game of the season, which was against Valladolid, which isn't too far out from Madrid. So a lot of fans made that trip and travelled there, and then celebrated with the players after the game. Apart from that, it was very disconnected and sort of just very strange to sort of be a part of. There wasn't any massive parades. Didn't go to Neptuno. So it was just quite eerie, really.
No, 100%, man. It'll obviously mean a lot to the fans coming back this season. You know, seeing Atletico play, and Atletico is still probably heavy favourites to win it again. All right, let's now talk about this whole Saul and Griezmann situation. Let's start with the whole Saul situation. I mean, if Saul himself, in his opening few statements when he's come to Chelsea, has said that it's going to be difficult for him to crack into the Chelsea midfield. Obviously the likes of Kante, Jorginho, Kovacic, supreme sort of midfield that we already have. And he acknowledges the fact that he has to work hard to get into the team. And he also acknowledges that over the last couple of seasons, he knows he hasn't been at his best. And one of the key reasons that he was sort of saying that he's looking forward to joining Chelsea is that he feels that he will be playing in his right position, which is in midfield. I mean, do you feel that is one of the core issues of him leaving Atletico in this particular transfer window, that he has been chopped and sort of thrown around in many different areas of the field where perhaps he didn't always enjoy doing those roles? I mean, could that be one of the reasons to start off with?
Oh yeah, absolutely, without a doubt. I mean, he even said so himself. So I don't know sort of whether a lot of Chelsea fans or Chelsea media have sort of picked up on this, but after the deal was confirmed, sort of early hours of the morning, he had an interview on Twitch, of all places,
on Twitch, yeah,
with Eli, a Spanish streamer, and he was very open, very honest, very sincere, sort of about the entire situation, really, which for a footballer is very rare, but it was quite a pleasant surprise. And he was very upfront, and he said he went to Simeone. He's asked to play in midfield, and it's just not happened, because ultimately the job of the coach is to think for the best of the what's best for the team.
yeah.
If Simeone thinks that Saul serves a better purpose for the overall balance of the team, playing as a left wing back or sort of left midfielder, then obviously that's what he's going to want him to do. And Saul, you sort of said it yourself, really. He's very much become a victim of his own versatility, and because he was such a fan of the club, and because he loved the club so much, he was never going to say no to playing in a certain position. He was never going to kick up a massive fuss. He was just going to sort of put his head down and get on with it, and just try and help the team as best as he can, whilst also making it clear that in an ideal world he'd play central midfield.
Yeah.
So it's very much one of the reasons for him to be leaving. And I mean, on the face of it, Chelsea is a slightly surprising destination for him, given the quality of your midfield. But obviously, you're going to be playing sort of 60 games this season.
Yeah.
Kante is not sort of the most reliable anymore. He picks up a lot of injuries, a lot of sort of small knocks and niggles, stuff like that. So he will get a lot of minutes as a central midfielder, especially because you also have Alonso and Chilwell on the left-hand side, so that there's no real worry of him being shunted out there, unless obviously something disastrous goes wrong for Chelsea. So that's definitely sort of part of the forefront of his thinking. Yeah.
We'll definitely talk about his skill set and his versatility a little bit more, especially in midfield, and we'll touch, as you said, about the versatility. But was there any issues? I know the role, obviously, being thrown around in many different positions was, as we've already mentioned, was one of the key factors. But was there a fallout between him and Diego Simeone? Was there any sort of news that was coming out over the last couple of seasons, especially last season, between the two individuals at all?
Never between Simeone and Saul. Simeone actually respects Saul a lot and likes him a lot. He sees a lot of good qualities in him, which is ultimately why he continued to get a lot of minutes when perhaps if it was a different player performing the way that he had been, they would have been on the bench a lot more and wouldn't have started sort of necessarily so many games. Obviously that changed a little bit in the season just gone because of COVID and the sort of more compact scheduling. There was a greater need for rotation, so perhaps that's not sort of as big as an issue as it sort of could have been. There was never anything sort of explicitly said between any sort of massive falling outs, even from other members of the club, sort of other board members, other members of the coaching staff, etc., etc. But there was definitely sort of little bits and pieces sort of being fed to the media to sort of paint him in a particular light, and I think that just wore on him a lot. So he's spoken a lot about sort of feeling very frustrated and feeling like it sort of just stagnated a little bit and gone a little bit stale. And I think that's just because it was a never-ending sort of media pylon towards the end of it. So even as soon as the league title was wrapped up, literally the next day there was articles coming out saying that Saul was pushing for a move away, that he was desperate to leave, and that he was the driving force behind it. Whereas he actually said it would have been the start of the summer, so about 6 weeks ago, he was leaving the training ground, and there's video footage of a a fan goes up and speaks to him, and he basically says like, why are you doing this? Like, why are you pushing for a move away? And Saul basically turns and says to him, it's not me that's doing it. They're wanting to get rid of me. Obviously insinuating that it's coming from the club, which I think is fair enough, because ultimately he was going to be 4th, 5th choice in central midfield.
Yeah.
With the signing of Rodrigo De Paul this summer. So it's understandable that you're going to want to get rid of a player who's on over 200 grand a week, who's going to be just a utility player and isn't the player that he was going to, what he looked like he was going to become sort of 4 or 5 years ago. But the emotional side, it just makes it's so incredibly sad. The fact that he, deep down, and if he had his way, he would have nailed down a central midfielder spot at Atletico, and gone on to play sort of 450 odd league games for the club, instead of effectively coming to a standstill and feeling like there is no other option apart from to leave. So it's very sad, because we've seen just how good he can be. That goal against Bayern still gets talked about to this day. And
I think the Chelsea admin just tweeted that as well earlier today.
Well, yeah, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me, because that was probably, at that point, you thought, wow, he's a 22-year-old doing that. What's he going to be like when he's now 26? Obviously, development isn't linear. It's not a constant progression, but he has very much stagnated, and that's for a number of different reasons.
I mean, I do want to quickly talk about the whole Rodrigo De Paul and how much of, as you said, he became a 5th choice midfielder. And I also want to talk about how I believe Saul is he a product of the whole academy situation in Atletico, because he started very young and there was a 9-year contract, I believe, with Atletico.
Yeah, that's right. So he is an academy product. So he was actually originally in Real Madrid's academy, and he made a very big decision, especially considering he was only I think it was 11. He was 11 at the time that this happened. Basically, he was getting bullied at the Real Madrid academy. So, for example, his teammates would steal his clothes whilst he was in the showers, that sort of thing. It just wasn't really a very nice environment for an 11-year-old to be in. And he made the decision to leave the Real Madrid academy, which obviously, when you're 11 years old, that's a very, well, I mean, when you're any age, that's a very big call to leave one of the biggest clubs in the world. And shortly afterwards, Atleti picked him up, and he then sort of progressed through the youth academy with ourselves.
And just on that, his whole mentality, because it looks like getting bullied, and obviously that would have made him, as a 11-year-old, to face that kind of stuff. I'm pretty sure that would have made him stronger down the track to be able to face that sort of situation. But the other factor that has happened recently was his injury. Apparently he had all these injuries with his kidneys and whatnot. He played through all of that. I think Diego Simeone has even said that he's got a lion's heart. He's a beast of a character. I mean, as a fan, did you guys get to see that period as well, when he was struggling physically but carried on mentally?
I mean, this is going to sound very weird, but those 2 years when he was struggling with his kidney issues was probably the 2 years where we saw the best version of Saul, and sort of the most complete version of Saul, which makes absolutely no sense at all, considering the amount of pain that he was going through. So I mean, just to go a little bit more into detail with that kidney issue, it was his Champions League debut. we were playing against Bayer Leverkusen, and obviously, like I say, it was a kidney issue that was at that point probably going to end his career and potentially change how he lived the rest of his life. So he tried to continue playing sort of through the injury, and then got to halftime, and in the dressing room at halftime, he started to shake and lost all sensation of both his arms and his legs. So he was obviously rushed to hospital, and he was told that one of his kidneys was destroyed. And he was back playing within about a month or so from that.
Incredible.
So for 2 years following that, he had to play with a catheter inside his body. So basically, he couldn't pee. So after every training session and every single match, he would you'd see him absolutely legging it down the tunnel, and that was so he could go and basically pee blood.
Yeah,
because that was all that was coming out.
Oh no, might have lost Jack again.
Oh, back again.
Yeah, back. Yeah. So he'd rush out and basically just pee out blood. Yeah.
And sometimes, like it would the pain would be so bad that he couldn't actually stand up. It would cause him to have to sort of lie down, and it got to the point where he wanted to just have the kidney removed. So he was begging effectively the doctor to remove his kidney, because his reasoning was that he had another one, and everything was just going to be fine. But what ended up happening is he ended up having a chat with our then assistant manager, Mono Burgos, who was diagnosed with cancer back in 2003, and that conversation really sort of opened up his eyes in terms of how important he needs to treat his body, and ultimately made the right decision in deciding to keep the kidney. And it's now sort of recovered. He now plays without the catheter, and it just goes to show just how mentally tough he is.
Yeah.
But equally, how much he's willing to put his body on the line for whatever team he plays for.
That's incredible, man. I mean, to show that desire to continue on. So many people would have just said, you know what, that's it, man. Like, that's enough. I know it's football. I know it's my passion, but I've got to take care of my body. But for him to carry on like that, incredible. And that would only mean, how strong he is mentally, and it's perfect for our team. Let's now talk about this whole deadline day situation, but also, as I said, talk a little bit about the Rodrigo De Paul, how that might have impacted that. Saul said just before, I think he said it in that Twitch interview with that Spanish guy last night, said that even a couple of days ago, he was told that he was going to be part of the Atletico Madrid setup. Obviously, there was rumors that he was going to leave, but then just a few days ago, they said that, no, you're going to be part of the setup, and so on and so forth. And he had mentally sort of prepared himself that he's going to be part of the Atletico Madrid team this season. He's already featured a few times already for the team. I think he started already as well once.
Yeah, he has, yeah.
There was a whole heap of rumors about Griezmann returning back to Atletico Madrid. Griezmann was getting thrown around to everyone, even Chelsea at one point. But there was heavy rumors of him going back to Atletico Madrid, the whole, Griezmann back, Grizz back and whatnot, hashtag Grizzbag and all that kind of stuff that was happening. But when did it all how did it all sort of transpire, Jack, from your perspective? I'm pretty sure you were keenly looking at the transfer deadline situation. I mean, was there always Griezmann on the cards that was going to happen, or what triggered at the end for all of this to sort of materialize, where Griezmann went to Atletico, Saul then ended up coming to Chelsea, I think Luke de Jong ended up going to Barcelona. What happened in that whole situation?
Well, it started off quite early on in the summer, actually. So there were a lot of very, very strong reports by sort of people very well connected to both Barcelona and Atletico that a Griezmann return was very much on the cards. Simeone never stops talking about Griezmann. He absolutely loves Griezmann, even after he went to Barcelona. Still absolutely loves him. So as soon as there was even the slightest possibility to get a deal done with Griezmann, Simeone was all over it and was desperate for Andrea Berta, our sporting director, to sort of try and get that done in any way possible. And then it cooled down a lot. According to the reports, Atleti were trying to sort of be a little bit cheeky, try and take advantage of the financial situation that Barcelona were in. So they were wanting Barcelona to sort of carry on to pay some of his wages. They wanted Barcelona to give them money as well as Griezmann in exchange for Saul. So at that point, that was when the whole Messi situation was still sort of very much up in the air as well, and Barcelona desperately needed to get players off the books to be able to register Messi. Obviously, as it transpires, Messi ended up leaving anyway. But it was always a logical sort of deal to do the Saul and Griezmann swap between Barcelona and Atletico. Certainly from our side anyway, because we needed a backup striker to Suarez because he's another year older. His knees are even dodgier than they were. You can't rely on him as your only number 9 when you want to compete for the league title and potentially make a deep run in the Champions League as well. I mean, you saw in that last 16 tie against yourselves, Suarez isn't the player that he used to be. He can't really.
Yeah, he had zero impact. He had zero impact against us.
Yeah, absolutely. So the club were looking for a backup striker, somebody to rotate quite regularly with Suarez, and in order to do that at that point, Saul needed to be off the wage bill because he's quite a high earner. Certainly in terms, I mean, I don't know what your wage structure is like, but if that deal does get made permanent next year, I don't know how that could sort of impact your wage structure because he is on over 200 grand a week. So he needed to be off the wage bill to bring in a good enough striker to rotate regularly with Suarez. And in fact, going even further back, a lot of people, when Rodrigo De Paul was announced and sort of confirmed, people were expecting Saul to then be gone within a matter of days, and it'd just be a complete like for like sort of swap in our midfield. Obviously, that didn't end up happening, and like you say, it then looked for a while like Saul was gonna stay. So Messi ended up leaving Barcelona, so suddenly there was a more well-defined and clear role for Griezmann in that team because obviously they both like to occupy the same sort of spaces. With Messi gone, it made sense for Griezmann to sort of naturally take over that role. So what sort of ended up happening is you had Griezmann ideally taking over, and then obviously we ended up signing Matheus Cunha for 25 million euros up front from Hertha Berlin, which was quite a strange signing. And everybody thought that was done then. Saul would just go on loan, and that would be the window, our window sort of shut really. But then it became clear that Laporta, so Barcelona's president, very much wanted to try and get Griezmann off the books because he is costing them a lot in wages, sort of triple what Saul is on. So
something around 800,000 euros a week.
Yeah. So obviously, for a club that's in pretty dire financial, pretty dire financial situation, it makes sense to sort of just take the hit now in terms of short-term success on the pitch in order to, make yourself a little bit more viable financially moving forwards. So on Monday, there was a call made to Atleti's officers from Barcelona wanting João Felix in just a straight loan swap with Griezmann. That was rejected, and from then it almost sort of feels like it was just, oh well, we might as well try our luck and just get Griezmann on a straight loan. In the sort of the week or so leading up to deadline day, it was sort of being reported that if Saul was going to leave on loan to either yourself or Manchester United, who were also obviously linked, there needed to be a replacement coming in. So Campagna was linked. Obviously, Bernardo Silva has been linked sort of all throughout the summer. Paulo Sarabia from PSG as well. And there was even one point on deadline day where he reportedly was postponing his loan move to Sporting to see how the Saul to Chelsea deal sort of ended up playing out. And then it very much nearly didn't happen. Obviously, the contracts came through to sort of the respective officers with 3 minutes to go.
3 minutes to go.
Yeah. And obviously there's that sort of 20 minutes or so in limbo where just absolutely nobody had no idea whether it had gone through in time or what, which probably would have made for a few awkward phone calls afterwards. And obviously in England you get the extra sort of hour to complete paperwork. In Spain you don't get that. So if Griezmann to Atleti wasn't done, Saul wouldn't have ended up going to Chelsea. We would have pulled out. So it very much came down to the wire, but it was in the works for a long time.
It's interesting. See, for us Chelsea fans, because we don't know, you follow Atleti so deeply, we kind of thought that just happened overnight. But as you said, this was in the works for a little while. It's just strange that obviously it happened right at the end. Jack, let's talk a little bit about now Saul to Chelsea. As you said, he was rumoured to Man United. There was also Liverpool at one stage, and Liverpool backed out because of wages concern, as you've already mentioned. Saul's on big wages. We don't know the whole ins and outs as to who's paying the loan fees. Obviously, we paid a loan fee to you guys and the option to buy for 40 million, not obligation. I believe you guys have an obligation to purchase Griezmann, which I think you guys are happy to do that anyway. But we sort of wanted that option, not an obligation, just to see, because we've also got Billy Gilmore in the background that's on loan to Norwich. There's a whole heap of rumours about Declan Rice, whether we go for him next season. So the whole option with Saul kind of makes sense. At the end of the day, if Saul does well, we'll probably trigger that option anyway. But in regards to his links to whether Man United or Liverpool or Chelsea, personally, do you see that he will fit into this Chelsea team because of Thomas Tuchel's style, which I feel not completely similar to Diego Simeone, but off the ball work rate I think there is a lot of similarities in terms of high work rate, intensity, pressing, counter-pressing, winning the ball back higher up the field. All of that is very much the ethos of Diego Simeone. Whereas when I look at Man United with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, I'm not really sure whether he completely fits in. I don't even know what style or structure they play. It's just a bunch of individuals just go out there and just do your thing, right? Liverpool, I think, could have been a good fit for him, but Liverpool, they bypass their midfield. It's only off the ball that they do a lot of the damage with their midfielders. On the ball, they do definitely do damage, but it's more quicker. They don't want to play too much in midfield. They spread it to their fullbacks, whether it's Trent Alexander-Arnold or Robertson, and then up the flank with Salah and Mane. Do you feel with Chelsea, because we like to control our midfield a lot with the likes of Jorginho, Kovacic, Kante, and Saul with that left foot as well brings something totally different for us in midfield. We don't have a left footer a combination between Jorginho and Saul, or whatever else, Saul, Kante, Saul, Kovacic, whatever the permutations are. Do you feel he probably brings a lot more to Chelsea than those other two teams?
I'd say so, yeah. For a few different reasons, really. I mean, one of them is that he very much backs himself, and he will get so much happiness if he is able to break into that midfield ahead of somebody like Kovacic or ahead of somebody like Kante, and that, I mean, happiness is what he wants to find again. He's said as much himself, he hasn't been happy for the last 2 years. So I think that's one aspect of it. I think living in London is an undeniable sort of pull to Chelsea compared to Manchester or Liverpool. Just because Saul, he's actually very, very sort of business savvy, and he likes to sort of invest in different things and stuff like that. So even off the pitch, it will be easier for him to sort of settle in and sort of find things to do, if that sort of makes sense, off the pitch. And I think if a player's happy before they're even kicking a ball, then it makes things so much easier in terms of settling in and then sort of finding that rhythm that he needs. Like I say, he's a left footer, so that's something that you guys don't already have. So that will be something new. And I mean, I can't say I watched too much of your guys, but I think he does offer something very different, because he is a little bit similar to Kovacic, or at least the Kovacic that was at Real Madrid. He will, sort of drive forwards with the ball, very much be box to box, never sort of really stops running, quite press resistant as well. But he will also sort of drift into little pockets of space, sort of not completely on the touchline, but sort of in that left half space. He does like to sort of drift and just find small little pockets of space there. The one thing that will be quite interesting to see is how he copes with sort of having a role and responsibility of sort of seeing more of the ball. So whenever he played for Atleti in central midfield, it was very much you win the ball back, you recycle possession with short, simple passes, and then Koke does all of the playmaking from the centre once he has the ball. So he was actually sort of quite limited in sort of what he felt he could do, and he felt that he could give a lot more. So it will be interesting to see, to see him sort of take that step up, and I'm actually quite looking forward to seeing him demand for the ball and drive forwards with it, which is something that we haven't seen for a long time. And I think if you can get that Saul back.
You know what, Jack? He will have to demand the ball, because our midfield, the way we operate under Thomas Tuchel, the double pivot are very involved. They're the connectors between defense and offense. So that he's going to see so much of the ball. It's very important.
Yeah. So I think if you can get that Saul back, who's happy to take the ball and drive forwards and play a slightly riskier pass than what he's been used to playing, then it will be very, very positive for Chelsea this season.
100%. The other factor that I want to talk about before we slowly start wrapping this up is our midfield, Jack. Kovacic, Kante, Jorginho, as great as they are, technically very good as well, and Saul as well, technically very gifted, as you've already mentioned, press resistant, close control of the ball, and all that. All of our midfielders have that in abundance. But the one thing that Saul probably has over all of those three is the ability to shoot. That's been our Achilles heel in our midfield. And I don't want to sit here and say that that's our responsibility for our midfielders. Our midfielders are not designed to do that role. As I said, they're the connectors between defense and offense. But there are times where Kovacic finds himself just outside the box, with an opportunity to take a shot, or Jorginho finds himself, or Kante finds himself, but they're just not polished enough to to have those long range shots, right? And I feel like we do miss out on certain goal opportunities in those scenarios where it's literally on the plate and all you need to do is just smack it in. I feel like someone like Saul does have that shooting technique to, if he does find those pockets of space, as you said, and he finds himself in those situations, that he won't shy away from taking a shot, and he's got the technique to hit it on target as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can't say I've seen that much recently because he's just become a complete shell of what he used to be like. But there is certainly potential for that. He does have a rocket of a left foot, and well, he used to not be afraid to use it. Let's see what ends up happening. But yeah, I think if Chelsea can get him comfortable and happy in that midfield pivot, then I think he will bounce back quite spectacularly. And like you say, you don't necessarily expect or demand goals from your midfield, but having that threat can be very useful, especially against teams that lost you again. Back again.
Yep, you're back.
Against teams that sort of sit very deep, having that ability to shoot from range just changes things so much, because suddenly, teams won't be willing to sort of sit off of him. They'll want to step out, which will then obviously create space in behind and so on and so forth. So I think it's very much an understated option to have.
100%, man. I'm buzzing, man. I'm buzzing. Honestly, Jack, it's been a pleasure talking to you. I hope you do see a little bit more of Chelsea with Saul there now. Do get to see one of your old boys to see how he's doing at Chelsea. And of course, Champions League. I'm sure you're going to you're obviously going to be watching Atletico Madrid, and I'm sure they're going to go for a run again. And Chelsea, I'm hoping that we do win the Champions League one more time. I feel like we've got now a complete squad. We've got a monster up front with Lukaku. We've still got plethora of forward players. Defense is stacked. We've got options in wing backs, and now we've got a complete set of midfielders as well that just immense quality, even if we get any injuries. So I'm really looking forward to it. Jack, my man, thank you so much for your time. Hopefully, if we do see you guys in the Champions League somewhere again, we'll definitely catch up, or even if there's any high-profile matches that's coming up, I'm pretty sure we're definitely going to catch up on that front.
Absolutely.
Jack, good luck to your moving to Spain. Any last few things that you want to say before we leave?
Not that I can think of, no. Actually, one thing I do just want to say is that I feel sorry for the bloke who has to clean Griezmann's plaque from our Paseo de Leyendas. So basically, we have every player that reaches 200 games for the club, they get given a sort of plaque just outside of the stadium. And as you can imagine, Griezmann's hasn't been kept in the best condition since his move to Barcelona. So it's going to take a lot of elbow grease to get that one clean and sparkling again. So that'll be interesting to see.
Brilliant, my man. Well, thank you so much, Jack. Ladies and gentlemen, if you've enjoyed this video, smash the like button. Make sure you get those likes up off the roof. Hit it out of control. If you're here for the first time, subscribe and check out Jack and his socials in the description. It's really interesting to follow Jack whenever Atletico Madrid's on action. So you do want to keep a tab of that and follow Jack. Until next time, everyone, take care and see ya.